Welcome everybody, Dadichi Toth here from astrology.com.au. Thanks for joining me, and just quickly a bit of an apology for the last couple of months. We did have technical difficulties. As you can see, we're back on track now, and this month I wanted to talk about fear, because really that is one of the emotions I feel, and I'm sure you'll agree, that is dominating the world stage just now. Everywhere we look, there's fear in terms of politics, in terms of the, terrorism that's been going on for years and years. In fact, throughout history, we see how governments and religious institutions too very, very ably use fear as a means of controlling the populace. So it's only a few, and I use the example of those couple of fish that sort of escape the net once it's being pulled in. I hope to think that you watching this will be one of those fish to escape the net of fear that's being cast by governments and religious institutions around the world, and you dare to stand up and enjoy your life and be free of this emotion. To exhibit courage, you have to practice that, you have to develop that, very much like a bodybuilder. You're not going to pick up a 200-pound weight without building up to that. Likewise, you have to practice this fearlessness, this courage, this earnestness to be independently free and self-actualized, but by doing it in small steps daily. And that means not worrying too much about tomorrow. In fact, there are some of the good books, such as the Bible, that talk about the spiritually enlightened people not really taking too much thought for the morrow. Living in the moment is probably the best bit of advice I can give you on that. When you're living in the moment, we talked about this on a few occasions, looking at the horoscope, we have to be like children. Children tend to live in the moment and just enjoy what's being presented to them on a moment by moment basis, not thinking too much about the future. And that, of course, doesn't mean you're going to completely discard your responsibilities and that sort of thing. What I'm talking about here is actively engaging your mind, your body and your spirit in something that you love, something that gives you passion. And if you have to, and I've been doing it too now, just turn the news off. I mean, the newspapers and the news are really just feeding into this whole fear mechanism. And so every day you're walking around with that. And of course, when you look at the world, the more people that imbibe this fear, the more we're generating this in the atmosphere, the more we're picking that up, our children are picking it up, and therefore it's absolutely not a wholesome sort of environment that we're living in. Probably one of the reasons I moved to a rural area here in the Philippines. Not as much going on, you don't have the same sort of excitement, but you certainly don't have the same level of fear that we're seeing here, there and everywhere. So what are the practical ways of overcoming some of these fears? As I said, number one, finding something that you passionately love to do, focusing your attention on that. Generating the opposite sorts of emotions can also help. In the creative visualization techniques, one method of overcoming such things as fear, jealousy, etc., is to counteract that with the opposite feeling. So if you're feeling fearful of things, apprehensive, you need to counteract that with feelings of confidence. And you need to do that in measured steps. Do things that you haven't done before. You need to confront your fears. And the big fear of terrorism, of course, is larger than life. You have to start with the small things. If you're a little bit shy, for example, you're scared of talking to people, well, that's a fear you can overcome by actively selecting a situation where you go in there and maybe talk to someone that you haven't talked to before, a complete stranger. I mean, it sounds silly, but you're only going to develop that strength by working in small measures to build up to the big things. Once you do that, then you can actually let go of this big fear, such as terrorism. The other thing, once told to me by a very great and enlightened spiritual master, is to in a way disidentify with yourself as a person. And that involves living each moment as if it's your last. That is a bit of a throwback to what I said earlier. Children tend to live life like that. So how do we do that? Basically, it's a discipline in focusing your attention wholly and solely on this moment. That means not worrying about what's gone and not worrying too much about what's coming, particularly if you're in the process or the action of doing something. Naturally, if you've got to plan your budget for next year, you do that when you sit down with your pen and paper to do your budget. But if you're washing the dishes or talking to someone, your brain shouldn't be engaged in any of that other sort of stuff. Bring it back to now and conquer this thing called fear. And where we can help you, we will. Of course, that's at my website, astrology.com.au. And you can always contact me here. Have a look at the email below. You can subscribe at our website, and I'm more than happy to give you personalised information for your specific requirements on how to overcome this terrible virus called fear. Take care. See you next month. Bye-bye.